Well, let's discuss this and more with Deputy Opposition Leader in the Queensland Parliament, Jarrod Bleijie. Jarrod, thank you very much for your time tonight. There's been a lot of talk this week about how the Premier might be reconsidering her future and that her colleagues are giving her the push, hoping it might give them a political upside. But the failings of this government traverse every portfolio and really do belong to all of the people who would consider themselves successors. So what does it say about Labor's values that they think just playing merry-go-round or, musical chairs is going to make all the difference?
Well, great to be on your program, Amanda. And look, you're absolutely right. We've seen the chaos and crisis and the dysfunction of the Labor government over the last few weeks and few days. And the people that are suffering because of the Labor government are Queenslanders in the health crisis, the youth crime crisis, the housing crisis, or the cost of living crisis. And Labor, all they are focused on at the moment is themselves. How do they stay in jobs? How do they keep the ministerial leather going? And then you've seen the auditioning happening since the Premier went away. The very first day she went away, they started, the Labor Party started leaking on the Premier. And then you've had Cameron Dick out auditioning with a manifesto, you've had Stephen Miles out, you've had Shannon Fentiman out, and then, God help us, you had Mark Bailey out during the week trying to show off, and that's the guy responsible for all the budget blowouts in Queensland and covering up $2.4 billion in blowout on a train manufacturing program. It's quite rotten, and I think the Labor government in Queensland is just rotting to the core.
Queenslanders are really struggling with the cost of living, and yet it barely seems to rate a mention for this state government. What should the government be doing now to take that pressure off and to bring more prosperity into households statewide?
Well, Queensland Labor have now given up on any aspirational people in Queensland. All they're doing now is saying that we've given you money back, it's in your bank account with a cost of living relief. That's the easiest government can do, because all they're doing is giving Queenslanders back their very money. It's already paid to the government. All the government are doing is giving a little bit back. But you've got to look at whole change. And that's why we talk about the Callide Power Station now. The coal-fired power station has still had generators which are not working. They've been out of action for years now. The Auditor General in Queensland said that having those generators out of action is contributing to the cost of living in Queensland and higher electricity prices. So the government could fix the generators, get them back online, and that would be an immediate relief, cost of living relief and electricity relief to the Queenslanders at the moment who are suffering. But the government, they've lost their way. The Labor Party in Queensland, Amanda, have lost their way. They've just worried about how they can keep power in Queensland. And, today of all days, Cameron Dick, who's trying not to be outshone by Stephen Miles and Shannon Fentiman in the auditioning process, he released a strategy today about tourism. And interestingly, it was how to have a holiday in Queensland and encouraging people to have holidays in Queensland at the very time his boss is in Italy. Now, if that doesn't show you that they are out in the Labor Party to get their own leader, I think it says more about the three people auditioning for the role than anybody else in Queensland.
It does seem out of touch. What did you make of the tone-deaf comments of member for Capalaba, Don Brown, both trying to blame John Howard for youth crime and in the next breath saying that it was all a beat-up and there's nothing to see here?
Well, two things I think on those comments, because he did two Facebook posts. The first one was blaming John Howard for the youth crime crisis, and he tried to tie it to the baby bonus. And he gave an age group of young people. So the two things I'd make, Amanda, is this. One is my middle daughter is in that age bracket. And Don Brown is effectively saying if you've got a 14 to 19-year-old, that they were just the making of people that wanted money from a baby bonus. And I think that's really disrespectful to so many young people in Queensland at the moment who are not contributing to the youth crime, who are just at school doing the best they can. So I think that's really disrespectful for many Queenslanders and an attack on young people. And the second thing is, it was just disgraceful. But do not underestimate the importance of who actually said these comments and that youth crime crisis was just a media beat-up. Don Brown is not only the member for Capalaba, he is the chief government whip. He is responsible for team discipline, He is responsible for taking Labor MPs into line with messaging, and he is responsible for Labor Party messaging. So if he is delivering a message as Chief Government Whip that youth crime is a media beat-up, then he believes it. And I think the Labor Party actually believe it, but they are now just trying to show that they're doing a few things to basically keep everyone quiet. But it's past that now. Too many people are being broken into, too many cars are being stolen, too many incidents of assaults are happening around the state for the people just to go quiet, as they may have in the past with the Palaszczuk government. But enough is enough now. The people are turning on the government, they are certainly turning on the Premier, and I've said many a times in the last week, it doesn't matter if it's Anastasia Palaszczuk. All the Labor senior ministers are as bad as each other and will continue bad Labor policy if they get elected next year, which is why it is so important they don't get re-elected again.
The last state budget was really carried by high commodity prices, even though it failed to deal with persistently high debt. But given commodity prices are now falling, what should the approach be to Queensland's next budget?
Well, this was always the warning that we as an opposition and many of the trade and investors who partner with Queensland have been giving the state Labor government. They have relied on, obviously, the commodities and the exports in Queensland, particularly coal, despite the fact the Labor Party hate coal, I might add, but they're relying on it to fund their budget. And we've always warned them that at the end of the day, as we've seen with the market and coal, it goes up and down. And the government have no plan for when this happens. Businesses have been pleading with the Labor government to give them taxation certainty for years. Look at I just met 2 days ago in my office another family practice of GPs, doctors on the Sunshine Coast, who are looking to possibly close their business down because of, they kicked the patients' tax into a year and two after the election, but it's still there, right? It is still there. They're going to make the change. Cameron Dick said he still believes fundamentally in the patients' tax. So that's coming down the line for businesses. You've got the renters' tax that they tried to introduce. So there is no taxation certainty for businesses. And that's why they're really going to struggle next year as commodities fall off and the prices are obviously going increasing. Look at the blowout in the budgets we've already had in infrastructure, but also Olympic infrastructure, where they say the Gabba redevelopment's only going to cost $2.7 billion. So I am really worried where we're heading to next year. And that's why I think when the Labor Party, the more they concentrate on themselves, they're not focusing on the issues that matter to Queenslanders. Queenslanders aren't interested in the leadership rumblings of the Labor Party, but they are interested in housing, getting a roof over their head, affordable living, cost of living relief, the health crisis, and of course the big one at the moment, the youth crime crisis. But the government have forgotten all those people, forgotten all those issues and given up on them.